prayers first, and then we did the meditation. Let's do it the other way around.
We can't hear you.
Still no?
Wait a second.
This is
This here. Right now?
no.
Takes
It takes a moment.
Oh.
Well, that's too loud. Okay. All right. So last course we started with the prayers and then we did the motivation, but actually it should be the other way around. So allow me to set the motivation. That is, we do a little bit of breathing, about 2-3 minutes of breathing, just to calm the mind down, to let go of any disruptive thoughts, worries, anything that doesn't relate to this course. And then I'll guide you through a setting of your motivation, just to get the right kind of motivation for this course, and then we start the prayers. We do the prayers after the setting the motivation. Okay. Now, to generate the most effective motivation for this course, or this weekend, try to think that we have this unique opportunity to take some time off from our busy schedule and so maybe use this short time together to hear about, contemplate and meditate on the object of refuge. May this help us to increase our compassion, our determination to attain the awakened state of a Buddha. As well as our wisdom. So that we will eventually reach the awakened state of a Buddha. So that we're able to guide others to that same state. With this motivation, let's do the prayers. Heart Sutra, Refuge, and again Bodhicitta, and the four immeasurables.
Page 6. סובבו אותך. משתחווה לשלוש האבנים היקרות הנעלות. כך שמעתי. פעם אחת ישב בגבוה ואהב פסקת הגשר. הלך המקסם בגדולה של נזירים בעלי הסמכה מלאה ושם בגדולה של בודהיסטווה. באותה העת היה הבא לבש שקוע בעיצוב מדיטטיבי של הבניית התופעות הקרוי הבהרה מעמיקה. כמו כן, באותה העת התבונן הבודהיסטווה מהסטווה אריה אבלוקלשוורה בעוצמה במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה להתבונן אף בחמשת המצרפים האלה ולהקים בעצם טבעם. ואז, מכוח הבודה, אמר כך שרפותא לבד לבודהיסטווה מהסטווה אריה אבלוקלשוורה בעוצמה. כיצד יקבל אותו בן השושלת הרוצה לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה? משאמר זאת, השיב כך הבודהיסטווה מהסטווה אריה אבלוקלשוורה בין השושלת ובת השושלת הרוצים לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה התבוננו כך. התבוננו עד תום אף לחמשת המצרפים האלה כרגילים מעצם טבעם. החומר ריק, הנפקות היא חומר, אין ריקות מלבד חומר, ואף אין חומר מלבד ריקות. כמו כן, תחושה, הבחנה, גורמים מורכבים ותודעה ריקים. שריקות כל התופעות הן נטולות מאפיינים, לא נוצרות יפתחו כל בעלי התודעה באושר ובמקום מהשם. ויפרדו כל בעלי התודעה מסבל ומקומי הסבל. ולעולם לא יפרדו כל בעלי התודעה מאושר נטול כאב. ויפתחו כל בעלי התודעה כמידת ההשתפרות ללא משוא פנים של התקשרות ושל שנאה.
Because when I'm just right, usually you're too cold. I'm just right. Are you sure you're warming up with the... Okay. You're not too cold? Okay. Welcome to close it, because I got my summer clothes with me, just in case. Alright, so a few words before we start. As usual, when I teach a course, I like it to be in silence. And I've been asked in the past to explain why. Because to ask from you to keep silence, I mean, many of you are familiar with it. But just in case for someone who still finds that difficult, well, this is the way we do this course is like a retreat, like a mini retreat, like a really short retreat. And during a retreat, the sessions are important, but even more important are the in-between sessions, where you digest basically what we discussed here during these sessions, during these classes. And so it's really important that you spend some time with what you've learned. This is the most focused you can be, because once you return to everyday life, it's quite unlikely, maybe for the first days, that you think about it a little bit, but really to digest what we've done. The best time is the in-between session, and if you're not talking, it's a great opportunity to do so. Sometimes I just forget to give you an in-between session job to do, something to think about. I realized last time I totally forgot. But I try when I remember, or maybe someone can remind me of something to reflect on that has to do with the topic, to focus on that just when you're walking towards dinner, and to think of it during dinner. I might as well say it now. Are we going to have dinner, breakfast in the morning with other people in there? Are we going to have breakfast in there? If that happens, it's going to be a little bit weird. We're in silence, and there are these groups, all these people there, and it has this kind of holiday atmosphere. So it's just up to our own mind to turn it around and think, those people who come to the dining room, they're the representation of all sentient beings, and now we wish them, maybe we do Donglen, taking all their suffering, they represent all sentient beings. So as they're chatting away in German, so don't worry, you won't understand. I'm the only one probably understand. No, as they chat away, there are a lot of groups there. So just to visualize you're taking away all their suffering and all your happiness, to turn it into a dharmic experience. Because that's really the only time I noticed it didn't feel as much like a retreat. When we're there alone during lunch and dinner, it's different. It feels much more, it's just us, it's the food. But also, to not think you're eating the food for yourself, but that the food, through you eating it, it benefits all sentient beings. It nourishes sentient beings, especially in the Preta realm, who cannot get nourishment in the way we can because of their karmic obstructions. So to think, in whichever way you want to, that as you're eating this very nutritious food will benefit all these Preta beings, will benefit all these other beings. And if there are other people around, to visualize you're benefiting them, do some Donglen, whatever you've learned so far, whatever feels comfortable. So to turn it into a dharmic experience, okay? And to deal with the absence of silence, which of course you're still keeping, even in the presence of those people. Okay. And then also what I'd like you to do is to come to all the sessions if you can. Of course there may be reasons sometimes you can't, but please try to come to all the sessions, meditation sessions, everything, just because it benefits everyone. Because if there's an empty spot, people kind of feel it, and it feels like someone's missing, something is missing. Okay, so it'd be great if you could come, all of you. So let's start. I didn't realize it was that many pages. 98 pages to go through. This is, and I also didn't realize it wasn't that long ago that I taught this, in 2016. It was only 3 years ago. It felt like it was a long... it says 2016? It's 2019. Okay, it's the same. Oh, right. Well, if it's the same, yeah, okay, well, never mind. Okay, but it doesn't have the content. It doesn't have the content in the beginning. The other one has a content. Never mind. So, when I put this together, I tried to put everything that I learned about the 3 objects of refuge in this booklet. So everything the way we learned it, because I found the way we studied it quite effective. Of course, a lot of it is a little abstract, a little theoretical, and really our job here, and I want you to be part of this, is to slightly translate it into modern language. To not just read through it and go, yeah, in an abstract way it makes sense, but refuge is kind of over there. It's kind of like thinking of numbers and formulas that have nothing to do with you. It shouldn't be that, because understanding has so many different levels. Of course, the abstract understanding, the intellectual understanding, but then also the understanding of how it makes sense to you personally in your own life, how this personally affects you. And then through meditation you can even deepen that sense. So that's extremely important, that we change the language a little bit. This is the abstract language that is used. I'll give my best also to, of course, use different terminology, but if you could help me with that and bring in your own ideas what this can refer to. Okay. And the first word that comes to mind is the word refuge itself. I don't even think that's a good word. What does it say? It says in the English website, I totally forgot about that, asylum application? Does it say?
The English website, the English translation on the Dharma Friends website, it says this course is called asylum application.
This course is called... so if you Google Translate, it says asylum application. Oh my God. We're all refugees. We're asking for it. No, I think this is possibly why people don't necessarily like this topic, because just the word refuge, it means like you're giving up something, like you're totally surrendering, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but it's almost like you have nothing and now you're at the mercy of Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And that's really not what's meant with this idea, with this concept, or with the refuge itself. The Tibetan word, in fact, is not really refuge. I mean, the word refugee has the connotation of seeking protection. But actually, if you have a problem, you feel miserable, and the first thing that comes to mind is, I'll eat a bar of chocolate. That is taking refuge. But you wouldn't think of it taking refuge, right? You're having a problem, you're facing a difficult time, something you don't want, and if you seek a solution to this problem, you wouldn't say, I go for refuge, would you? Right? Well, that's what we mean here with like taking refuge. Basically means seeking help and trusting ourselves in something that can help us. When we were children, when we had a problem, we would run to our mom, right? Mom or dad. When we felt miserable, we had a hard day in school. I don't know, once we were teenagers, we probably stopped doing that. But as kids, if we had a problem, we looked for our mom. We looked for the solution. We found some kind of solace, is that the right word? With our mom. Okay. Okay? Found that just being with her could help us to solve the problem. So that's more the idea here, of seeking something that can help us with the issue. So that's already the first word that comes to mind when we take refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. But also, what I did in the beginning, which doesn't really relate to refuge as such, it puts it into context with regard to the topic we studied it. I mean, you see, like, to give you a sense what we studied when we studied philosophy. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you study a particular group of sutras. And you just cited one of those sutras, Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. So of course all the teachings of the Buddha, in an indirect way, we tried to study all of them. But the main focus was on a body of teaching which are described as the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, the second turning of the wheel. So that was the main focus. And then all our studies, there are 5 main subjects we studied. They all related to the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. So there was a great master, a great Tibetan master called Gungkyen Jayan Shepa. He once said that we study the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras in the following sense. So first we study the implicit meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, which means the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, they have an explicit and an implicit meaning. Explicitly, what do they teach? Emptiness. Explicitly, form is empty, emptiness is form. The words themselves, they express emptiness. But they also teach an implicit meaning, something that is not directly obvious, and which in Tibetan is also described as the hidden meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. Hidden in the sense that the words do not directly imply that this is what the sutra teaches, but if you learn it and you study it, then it becomes clear. It also teaches the different methods, the different path to enlightenment. Not just wisdom as a method, not just emptiness, but also the different levels, the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. Therefore, these are implicit. And after the Buddha had taught the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, there were great masters who understood the implicit meaning. In order to clarify this, in order to explain this to others, to make others clear that this is what the Buddha taught implicitly with those sutras, they composed specific texts that lay out the implicit meaning. So one of those texts is called the Abhisamaya Alankara by Maitreya, or to say it in English, Ornament for Clear Realizations. Okay? He's composed this relatively short text in comparison to some of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, which can have 100,000 verses. He composed a text of just 8 chapters. And in that text, he included the main implicit meaning of the main kind of topics that are part of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So therefore, when we do the study of philosophy, we first, as Jaman Cheva would put it, study the implicit meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And thereafter that, we study the explicit meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. But this time we're not relying on Maitreya's Ornament for Clear Realization, but we rely on Nagarjuna's Fundamental Wisdom, or Mula Madhyamika Karika, and more importantly, we rely on Chandakirti's text, Entry into the Middle Way. Okay? So if you don't remember the name of those texts, never mind, but we study first the implicit meaning, we study basically the means to attain enlightenment as set forth in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, and thereafter the explicit meaning, that is emptiness. So that's the study of Pajin first, as part of the studying the implicit meaning, and then the study of the middle way. Study of the middle way, which is the study of emptiness. So that's already 10 years. Those two topics. While we study during those 10 years, every year we take some time, 1 or 2 months, and we study logic. We study the logic that helps us to understand the Perfectional Wisdom Sutras as a tool. So of course, in the whole time we're already debating, we already use logic to understand the Perfectional Wisdom Sutras better, but in order to deepen that logic, to enhance our ability to really understand that text through logic, we study a text called Pramana-vatika by Dharmakirti, which is basically a text on logic. So this text is like a decodifier that allows us to understand the logic that is needed, or the ideas, the logical ideas that we need in order to decodify, to understand the Perfectional Wisdom Sutras. So we study the logic as a tool for the Perfectional Wisdom Sutras. And so after those 10 years, during which we studied the explicit meaning, so the implicit meaning of the Perfectional Wisdom Sutra, the explicit meaning, and the logic that is needed to understand it, then we covered already the 3 main topics. Then after that, we studied the phenomenology. We specifically take out the different divisions, the different phenomenology, if you like, that are set forth in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. No eye, no ear, no nose, etc. It's all part of dividing reality, dividing it, categorizing it in a specific way. We study that as part of the study of the Abhidhamma Kosha by Vasubandhu. So we use this text, Treasury of Knowledge, or Abhidhamma Kosha by Vasubandhu, that helps us to understand